Okay, so we're going. So the question is to write a 6-sentence conclusion over the walking stick data in the 3 different environments. So first we looked at the bush environment, which is the graph you see here. Then we looked at bamboo and wood chip environments. And you should have noticed differences in the populations of the walking sticks in those. But then looking at it, I wanted you to explain why those things happen. So I would like to hear from 4 of you about what you wrote. Go ahead.
I can conclude that these graphs look the way they do for a few reasons. Because the brown was the highest survivor in the wood chip environment, and because it blended in.
Okay.
And so in the bamboo environment, the green brown at the most, like they survived the most. And then in the bush, was the highest survivor, and green brown was the highest survivor in the bush too. And I can also infer that the green walking sticks were one of the easiest to find in all 3 because they stood out the most.
They stood out the most. Okay, great. Someone else. Go ahead, Brendan.
I think the graphs look the way the graph results look the way they do because bamboo was easier to see because it was a light color. It was a light colored background, and wood chip was hard to see because it had a variety of dark colors. So bamboo had a lower survival rate/numbers.
Overall, you mean?
Yeah,
of all the, okay.
And wood chip was higher, stronger. I had the highest survival rate for the green because I'm colorblind. The others had a low rate because you could see better.
Yeah, the color blindness makes a really interesting thing, which is a mutation, and it's a mutation on your sex cell. So your Y chromosome, you have the mutation on the X chromosome, and because you have the Y chromosome, there wasn't that part of the chromosome to cover up that mutation. So it's a recessive trait, and it's really fascinating. Usually that doesn't affect you in your environment. It's not a life or death thing, so you'll be fine, right? But if it was something in your environment, like if you were one of these birds eating walking sticks and you couldn't see a certain color in that environment, you might have a problem, right? That's really cool. All right, 2 more people, please. I want you to talk about your conclusion. Yes, Arian.
I can conclude that in the bamboo, the sticks were easier to see because they were in lighter, like brighter environment.
And that goes for all walking sticks, yeah? I had some people in other classes that annihilated all the colors. Like they ate all of them in the bamboo. They just disappeared after the first because there was nothing to live on to reproduce. So continue.
And they were harder to see in wood chips because they were in a darker environment. The green, brown, and brown are the ones that survive more in the wood chips because they blend in more. And in the bamboo, the green, brown survived more because they were like in between the leaves, like on the stalks.
Okay. So in shadows, they did a little bit better. Yeah. What about the bush environment? Green brown had the most. And why is that?
Because they were like defined, because just by the bare eye.
Yeah, they're harder to find.
They blend in more like with their environment.
They blend in more with their environment. Yeah. Okay. And then one more person to read their conclusion.
Easy.
All right, you got a good one?
Yeah.
All right, read it.
Here?
Yeah.
The bamboo graph had the lowest numbers as green brown, the highest. the wood chip graph in the highest, the wood chip graph had the highest numbers, as the green the highest. The orange school couldn't help it, so he struggled because he was colorblind. The green brown was the hardest on the bamboo because it blended in. The survival rate of the sticks depended on the color of its surroundings.
The survival of the walking sticks depended on the color of their surroundings and their color, right? Okay, great. So, additional vocab word. You ready? Natural selection. Someplace near, right underneath the conclusion, yeah. You know what I did not hear from any of you? Pencils up for just a second. I did not hear they adapted to their environment. So I want you, in case you did write that down, I want you to eliminate that language. I don't want you to use adapted to their environment. Because when you say that, it's saying that they're adjusting to their environment. And did the walking sticks choose their color? No. Right, so here's what's really going on. It's not that they adapted to the environment, it's that they're going through the process of natural selection. So, go ahead and write that down. I'm going to turn this so we can see the vocab word there. All right, so there's natural selection. So the process by which individuals that are best adapted for life in their environment tend to survive and pass on their traits to following generations. Thank you so much. Do you want me to read it again? Okay. The process by which individuals that are best adapted for life in their environment tend to survive and pass on their traits to following generations. The process by which individuals that are best adapted for life in their environment tend to survive and pass on their traits to following generations. So think about the walking stick simulation, right? Did you see this process happen?
Yeah.
And where? Where did you see it happen? When you what?
Like when we got further in.
When you got further in, so like the 5th generation,
Yeah.
you could definitely tell a big difference. Okay? And so let's take the bush environment, for example. You see on the graph here, I'm going to move this. Yeah, so our highest by the 5th generation is the green-brown. There are no brown and there are no green by the 5th generation. So green has a steady decline. Brown drops right away, and then by the 2nd generation, they're all picked off. Yes, sir?
In my wood chip one, green were gone right away.
Yeah.
And then in the third, like where for green and brown, it was gone. And then the brown just kept increasing.
Yeah. So could we say that the brown was the best adapted for life in the wood chip environment? Okay. And they survived long enough to pass on their traits to the following generations? Yeah? Okay. So the next activity I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you go in groups of 3. You're going to stand facing each other in a circle, and you're going to discuss and remember the answer to this question. In order for natural selection to occur, what 3 conditions must be met? So you're going to stand up, you're going to face each other, and everybody's going to talk. You're going to review what you said in order to share it with the rest of the class. So you have to remember it. That's the hard part. Okay? And also, this question could be a little tricky. Here's the thing that the last class struggled with. They struggled with what didn't survive. So they were looking for reasons why, the brown didn't survive here. That's not what I'm looking for. The brown was unselected. Okay? I'm looking for how do they get naturally selected? The ones that survive. How do they get naturally selected? What 3 conditions have to be met? So think over generations. So you 3 stand. Don't discuss. Yes, yeah, please. You 3 stand. You 3 stand. You 3 stand. And you 3 stand. Go over here. What group would like to volunteer to be videotaped? You guys? I'm good with that. Okay. So, the goal is to be heard and to stay on topic. Okay? But I need you looking at each other. So just move a little closer to the, there you go. All right. So, in order for natural selection to occur, what 3 conditions must be met? You gotta talk.
The 3 conditions that must be met would be environment. The environment second. People that
Yeah. Because because you gotta think about what they really need to live. Because
the food they eat.
you need air.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about surviving. We're talking about natural selection, best adapted to their environment. How does that happen?
It's a natural selection.
The conditions to be that they don't adapt, but they pass on their traits.
Yeah, but they don't. Oh, no.
The best one pass on.
Oh, they?
Yeah,
They
what you scream.
They need
They need an environment. Look like their environment.
They need an environment that is different color. Different. They need a
color.
Yeah, they need a light environment.
A natural habitat
So they can find
to
food.
a natural habitat to do their main sources like the things. I mean, food, water, and everything like that.
Tyler, are you done? You need to stand and face them so you can talk.
Okay, so
Change their colors too.
they also need to pick the traits so they see food
But you were talking about adjusting.
in order for
How
them,
do colors
in
adjust?
order for them
So the colors are traits,
reproduce,
and sometimes they're different. How does that happen?
in order for them to reproduce,
And then
they
what
need to have like a light environment so they can find each other.
Yeah, on the other hand, they're gonna
You
get
are
cheated
great.
by.
And you remember them?
I'm gonna eat that though, like a bat, a spider, a bird, a bird. Tweet, tweet. Oh gosh.
We got 2, so what's another condition they need? They need
Weather.
You've got 2.
I don't know.
they need other animals besides that, so like when they die, they can eat stuff like that. They rely on all the
Like, exactly.
Not die.
So we have environment colors. Their colors. Hey, their colors. And the environment colors. What else do we?
Yeah, those two are mine.
They rely on each other for food. I don't know what that's called. It's a special name. It's
Heredity? Maybe what is it that you're thinking of?
It's like. Alright, so we already have two.
What are they?
Natural habitat, right? And the colors. Like the.
So the colors are a trait, right? Good. So the colors are a trait.
Adaptation, like where they live, what food they eat, and all that.
Okay, so they have a certain trait. They have a color, right? And they're living in an environment. And if they survive long enough, what happens then?
They reproduce.
And they do what for their offspring?
They like feed the offspring.
Well, no.
Right.
The trait. Talk about the trait. They pass on their trait, right? So they pass on the trait. What's that called when you pass on a trait? Starts with an H. Heredity. Yep. That's your first one. So you have three. Can you repeat them for me?
So
Natural habitat.
natural habitat and environment colors.
And the colors, which is a trait, and heredity. Write those down, please.
On the whiteboard?
Yep. Okay, please write down what you have.
Hey Nathan, do you have a whiteboard?
Please write down what you have on the
Yeah,
whiteboard.
sure I do.
And then we'll discuss together.
You want to look what you write down?
Nope, we're going to discuss it here in a sec.
I did.
All right. So, who wants to be the first to give me one of their conditions? Jarek? Traits. Okay. So what you were talking about is like the skin color of the walking sticks, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. What else?
They need to adjust their climate.
So they need to adjust to their climate? What do you mean?
If they live in like a warm environment and maybe they get like moved to a different place because the predators are getting higher for them.
Okay, so them moving could be an adjustment, an adaptation. But remember, we're not using the adjustment definition of adaptation. So adaptation happens because of what? What's the first step? Do you remember our 6 boxes?
Yes.
Because of a mutation, and it is completely random, right? So it's not them choosing something to adapt to their environment. We're getting rid of that language. We're talking about biological adaptation. So something to add, sir?
Well, that they need to survive long enough to reproduce.
Okay, so if they survive to reproduce, what are they doing? What does reproduction do for this? Yep.
Heredity?
Yeah, they pass on their trait, okay?
To their offspring?
Mm-hmm. They pass on these traits And this is called heredity. Good. Okay. What else? Now, he mentioned it adjusting to the climate, but there's something else going on. What condition haven't we touched on? What do you guys think?
Being able to survive in your environment.
Good. Yeah. So let's say suited to their environment. Other discussion? Did we miss anything? Or do we need further explanation? Yes, sir.
You're gonna have to live in the environment?
Yes. And they have to be suited to the environment. They have to survive long enough to reproduce.
And then
So-
like their predators would be birds, right?
For the walking sticks, their predators would be birds, absolutely.
There's a lot of
And so now we're talking about unsurvival, right? Or natural unselection, right? But we don't want to focus on them. Yes, sir?
You also have to not get eaten.
Yes. And so how do they not get eaten? They're suited to their environment to survive long enough to reproduce, to pass on their traits, which is heredity.
I just summed it all up.
Yeah, there's one more thing that we need to add. Okay, instead of traits, I'm going to have variation
Would natural habitat work?
of traits. Nope. Because when you're talking about natural habitat, you are saying this. You're saying they're suited to their natural habitat. They're suited to the environment around them. And because they're suited to that environment, they have all the stuff they need for it in order to survive, to reproduce long enough and pass on these variation of traits to their offspring that will help their offspring be successful. So I need you to write this down. So title it 3 Conditions for Natural Selection.
On the whiteboard.
No, in your lab binder, underneath your conclusions, please. So title it 3 Conditions for Natural Selection. Okay? Or Natural Selection 3 Conditions. And these are the 3, and actually, let me shorten this. That's the definition of heredity. So, huh? You might want to put survive to reproduce, heredity, which means they pass on the variation of traits.
And then we put the example down.
No, you can simply write these 3 things down. These are the 3 conditions. When you're done, could you turn to page 16 and read the page? Yep, we're gonna watch a video, and you need to be able to answer all of these questions as you watch the video. The video is 11 minutes long.
Will it be like, will the video like show like the questions like
You'll be able to determine. Some of those questions are some heavy thinkers.
Would you stop or?
Nope, we're just gonna move through it and we'll discuss after the video. So you are reading the questions on page 16 after you wrote these in your lab binder. You're going to watch the video on your own. So if you go to FOSWeb and you log in, so your username is MVMS and your password is Wildcats1, capital W, cats with an S, and you're going to go to the multimedia and you're going to look for the video, and the video is called The Making of the Fittest, Natural Selection and Adaptation. And then I'll pick up the video for discussion. after we're done. Okay, so now we're going to be discussing page 16, the making of the fittest questions after we watch that video. So number 1 says, how did the trait of dark fur first appear in the population of rock pocket mice? Jaylyn, what'd you write down? You're right. How did that one mouse, though, get that trait? How does it start? What about the genes? You're right. It would be that first box that we drew. What happens to the genes? Not yet. No. Just that single mouse that ends up with dark fur. Something on the genes. Do you have those boxes in your notes? What was the first box? What'd you say? Happy accident. What's above that? An error in a DNA, and what's that called? Yep, it's a mutation. Did y'all have that? Okay, so just a happy accident for the dark fur on the lava flow. Not so happy accident if they're living in the sand. Yeah. All right, number 2. Why does the dark fur trait spread so quickly in mice that are on the lava flow? Yes, sir. Oh, pause. Go ahead.
Because they survive and they reproduce, and the black ones have a better chance at living than the lighter ones around.
Yeah, they have a better chance on the lava than the light fur ones, and they survive long enough to reproduce. Does anybody have anything to add? Are we good with that? It comes from their heredity, right? They inherit those traits. Okay. Number 3, do mice that live on the lava flow actively choose to adapt to that environment? Oh, we'll pick up here on Monday. Thanks.